Hey y'all, so I wanted to come on today to share some thoughts that I've had recently with you all. And of course I'm still processing and marinating on all the stories that we reviewed through the book Women Who Run with the Wolves. So I love YouTube. It's really my main source of entertainment over like TV. I never watch TV anymore. I just feel like the content on YouTube is richer, more entertaining. I just love to hear what us common people are thinking about. Have to say there's a lot of good humor out there, a lot of deep thinking, and just such a wide range of subjects. And so that's really where I get a lot of my entertainment. So you know how in your main feed on YouTube it'll you know, offer suggested videos. So I actually watched 3, and they all seem to tie together through the story, the crescent moon bear that we reviewed in the book Women Who Run with the Wolves. So I loved how they validated little bits and pieces of the story that you know, otherwise we may not have caught as important. So I really wanted to share that with you all. And you know, it's one of those things where you know, we want, in the beginning stages of healing from a bad experience, from trauma, we definitely want to honor our feelings, right? That's really important. It's not something that we want to deflect from. We want, you know, that we want to just ignore and suppress, because that actually can backfire. We definitely want to honor the pain and feel the feelings. I think that's a really important stage of healing in the beginning. And then as we move forward, what can happen is, after we got all that out, you know, as far as the processing the emotions from the trauma, we can find ourselves in trying to understand it. We can find ourselves ruminating and getting stuck in these loops in our mind, and it you know, it can prevent us from enjoying the present moment and prevent us from envisioning, you know, goals and dreams for our future. So we definitely don't want to be stuck there, you know. And I feel like a lot of this is just part of which we've touched on briefly before, and maybe I'll find some good content out there to share with you all to back this up. But I know I've read about this in the past, where I feel like it's just human nature. It's almost like an instinct, a survival instinct, I think they call them, for us to stay focused on the negative. And it's a preventative kind of thing that happens automatically. And I think it's like that survival instinct part of our subconscious is the reasoning is, well, as long as we're staying focused on the danger, right, which the negative would fall closely aligned with danger, then it's like, surely we can avoid it going forward. So that's kind of, I think, the underlying mechanics behind why sometimes we focus on the negative. It's because subconsciously we don't want to go through it again. Yet we know logically that if you stay focused on the negative, it's really not a good thing. So that's where you have to have awareness. You have to be mindful on the regular, and you have to have that self-motivation to do something about it and override these instincts that are no longer useful. Okay, maybe they are useful at some particular stage, but once we've learned lessons, and once we've come so far along, you know, at that point we can engage this, you know, higher processing capability that we have as human beings. And that's what we want to do to move on. You know what I mean? So, because we don't want to be ruminating on our trauma. It's not the best. It's just not good for us. And it's going to better serve us to override you know, those kind of tendencies that we can have sometimes. So that's what we want to do, okay? And it is a process, and that's where we do really need to give ourselves plenty of grace, plenty of patience. It's step by step, it's a little by little, and you know, we should celebrate, you know, along the path, just little victories as we're moving forward. It can feel all-consuming at times, and you know, and that's why I think acknowledging the progress, just little steps, is important, so that it brings attention to the fact that we are making progress, even if it's just getting away from negative thinking, even if it's just getting unstuck from ruminating, you know, acknowledging, hey, hang on a second, yesterday was a really great day. I didn't spend any time at all thinking about this trauma. You know what I mean? Because logically it's not going to serve you to do so. So just to acknowledge that and stay aware of that is going to help play a part in something we're going to talk about, which is our dopamine baseline. There was a really interesting video that I ran across, and I'm actually going to put links to 3 different videos in the description below. And this one video discussed dopamine and how we can have a spike in dopamine and the different kind of things. You can watch the video, the different things that can cause the spikes in dopamine. But what was really interesting to me is it was discussed that our baseline determines, you know, how those levels, how far those levels rise when we have a spike. So it's like if you're coming to a situation or an experience that's going to cause a spike in dopamine, it's going to depend on where you are first before that experience. So I thought that was really interesting. And what I pulled from that is, as far as self-motivation goes, because it was discussed that, in particular, the examples in the video were related to exercise, because some people like jogging, for example, and some people hate it. And so for some people, engaging in that kind of activity is going to cause a dopamine rise, and then for others, it's not so much really gonna have that same effect. So, you know, there are substances that can cause dopamine spikes, and it was mentioned that, like, social media, you know, like the instant gratification, surprise, you know, from seeing something really positive or motivating on social media. There's things like that that causes a dopamine spike for all of us, or most of us, I would say. And that was kind of discussed in the video. But then there's a lot of things, a lot of activities and experiences that are more personal and subjective, depending on the person, like running, for example. So that's where that self-motivation comes in, that, you know, we have to understand what motivates us to begin with. You know, what's unique about what motivates you. And so spending that time to, and I know sometimes when you're coming out of a toxic relationship or situation where you've been broken down so much, and you kind of, you've, you know, lived in a state of, like being frozen, like we mentioned before, where you're just separated. It's like you've been peeled away from your true self. It may take a little while to find yourself again. You know what I mean? To get reconnected with your normal processes, you know, to get everything churning, to get your mind churning again, to get your motivation churning again. But once you get out of that toxic environment, which is the very first step, so that you can think for yourself, because a lot of times manipulative people, they don't even want you to think for yourself. They keep you so frazzled and so busy with their chaos and their drama that you can't even put 2 and 2 together. So once you're out of that environment, you know, it may take a little while to kind of get your footing again, where you're in a place of peace. And that's what we want, is to have a place of peace. And so finding what it is that motivates you, that's going to be unique for you. And once you find that, or once you find the several things, you know, ideally there'd be several things that bring you that happiness and that joy, then you're going to understand, okay, excuse me, these things are going to cause a dopamine increase when I engage in them. So therefore, I can motivate myself even if I don't feel like it. You know what I mean? Sometimes in the beginning, we have to, just like in that story, the crescent moon bear. You know, when she set out on that journey to climb the mountain, I'm sure that was not just super, you know, fun in the beginning. I'm sure it felt like a huge, you know, overwhelming task for her. Just like if you start a new exercise regimen, it feels overwhelming. And, you know, there may be times you wake up and you're like, I really don't feel like doing this, but you make yourself do it in the beginning, right? That's what happened with me with yoga. The first time I tried yoga, I'm really glad I did a virtual class and nobody could see me at home, because it wasn't like a crazy advanced class. It was just kind of a basic class. And honest to God, I thought I was in decent shape, and I couldn't last more than 10 minutes. It was so strenuous on me. I was so weak. I just couldn't do it. And I could have chosen to give up, but I didn't, because I knew I knew that, you know, it actually showed me, okay, well, I'm not as strong as I thought I was. So just like the lady in that story, the crescent moon bear, I'm sure that was overwhelming, you know, the task before her to climb the mountain. But so that's the self-motivating part. And then once we actually engage in a process and we get some kind of result, and it may take a time or two or several steps as we're moving forward little by little, we're going to see some benefit. And then once we get there, then that benefit is going to cause that dopamine increase in us. And then if we stick with it and we have, like, you know, repetitive experiences like this, that's going to create an elevated baseline of dopamine, so that when we have other experiences that would give us a spike, it's going to be even more so, or like icing on the cake. So if you watch that video, I'm going to give you a link. I think that what I'm talking about is going to make a lot more sense to you, but that's definitely something to consider as a part of moving forward in life and finding the things that motivate us and the things we can engage in with intention, and just understanding how things like dopamine work in our body, you know, and how it's tied. I think it's even mentioned in the video how it's tied, excuse me, with adrenaline. So it's just really interesting to be aware and just even have a basic understanding of those processes in the body, right? So, yes. And so in the crescent moon bear, she, if you remember, she stayed focused on gratitude as she was climbing the mountain. This is where all those details that seem unimportant, you know, just like fluff, they really aren't. So she's thanking, you know, the different parts of nature as she's going along, you know, like the tree branches as they would kind of lift up, you know, and allow her to move under. I think there were different parts like that where she would just thank the tree for allowing her to pass, or, you know, so she just kept this attitude of being grateful throughout her whole journey. And I just think that in itself is beautiful and a good thing. But she stayed focused on gratitude, and she was also immersed in her environment. And so I think all of that played a part as with her self-motivation to get to that point where her dopamine baseline was at a good level, you know, to keep her motivated. And then as she was moving forward, upward and forward a long time, this is where the second video I found comes into play. It's about the eye movement desensitization, the rapid eye movement, or whatever it's called, EMDR, the lateral eye movement that is used sometimes in therapy. It's really interesting how it works, but this particular video is making the connection between this eye movement, the lateral eye movement, the therapy of, I think it's the MDR, eye movement desensitization therapy. I don't know. But your eyes are moving side to side. Well, this video is saying that when you're moving forward, when you're walking forward, you're doing that naturally. You know, you're just kind of checking everything out around you as you're moving forward. And so I thought, wow, that's really cool, because in the story, she's moving forward. And so she's not staying stuck on the fact that, you know, her husband's in this depressed state. Yeah, that's the ultimate underlying motivation for her, but she's not focused on that. She's focused on moving forward. So I thought that was cool. And then there's another video, I'm going to put a link for you, talking about manifesting through non-resistance. That's kind of my summary. And I thought that was really interesting. I'm interested in non-resistance in general because, you know, even the Bible, I wrote down Psalms 42:7, you know, is where it's talking about it is well with my soul. You know what I mean? Like, no matter the circumstances, just keeping that strong of a faith and trust in God to get us through anything, you know, to be unshakable. Yes. And so, manifesting through non-resistance. So she has shifted her focus off of her husband being so immersed in depression, okay? And by doing so, ultimately, you know, she's able to come back and accept, you know, him for the state that he's in. And that's something we really have to sit with and understand, that we're never going to bring about, this is my opinion, we're never going to bring about positive change when we're living in resistance to the truth, because there's a lot of things that are out of our control. And, you know, we have to release those things. And that's where I'm going to reference again, you know, there's a book by Stephen Covey that talks about the circle of control, and just journaling and identifying what's within the circle of control, our circle of control, and what's not. And then I'm reminded of Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer too. You know, he's written a lot of books, and he talked about in his therapy practice that he found better results with his clients, his patients, when they focused on positive things instead of just rehashing the troubles in their life. And so, and ruminating. So, again, we don't want to deflect or push down hardships and trauma. We want to honor them by speaking them and understanding that they are and have been a part of our journey. But we need to get to the point where we understand that it's for a purpose, I believe. And you know, we wouldn't be who we are today or where we are today without our past, good and or bad. And so you know, to resist what is, like, for example, to resist that a person or an environment in our life is toxic is going to actually be a stumbling block for us. It's going to keep us from moving forward. So non-resistance is really, really important. And so she embraced the fact that her husband was depressed, and yet she didn't, she wasn't held back by that either. So I just hope that you, that this has given you a lot to think about. I hope that as we continue to move forward and just evaluate, you know, the different things that life has to offer for us, you know, whether it's through quotes or books or movies or music or, you know, whatever it is, I feel like we can, when we want to, we can find puzzle pieces and we can connect dots to paint a bigger picture that's going to help us move forward with awareness and with intention, because that's what we want, is to continue moving forward. And we have proof for how moving forward is actually healing and helpful for us, but we have to have that self-motivation. So I'll put some notes down there in the description for you, and I'll put the links for you as well. And I hope that you are motivated and inspired by today's presentation, and I just thank you for coming along with me. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I will see you again very soon.